You have a U.S. citizen fiance and you're planning on getting married, and how long is that process going to take until you're a permanent resident? Tune in today to Immigration Wednesdays to find out. Hi, I'm attorney Jeff Peak, and a common question we get when we are starting any immigration process is, how long is this going to take? And I think sometimes there's a common misconception. Many people have heard through friends or family that, hey, if you marry a U.S. citizen, that's a good path and an easy path to becoming a permanent resident. While that can be true, and certainly marrying a U.S. citizen does provide an opportunity, you have to have several eligibility factors available to you. But the bigger question is, how long is that going to take? And I'll tell you a little story from my past to maybe clarify this. When I was a young man, when I fell in love with my wife, she was here on a visa. She was from Mexico, and I had just started practicing immigration law. Didn't really know that much. And I thought very simply that, oh, well, once we start the process of getting married, this will be really quickly. We'll be able to get a travel permit, or we'll be able to go and get married outside the U.S. and come back in. And certainly there's got to be some process or form we can fill out, and certainly immigration officers will be understanding. What I learned very quickly is nobody really cares about your situation. There's no particular sympathies. There's no expedited fee you can pay to get something quickly done. And it puts you in a box really quickly of deciding which process. Are you going to do the inside the United States process, which is known as adjustment of status typically, or are you going to do the outside the United States process? And what I then learned inside those processes, inside the United States, which is typically adjustment of status or change of status, is usually the best process as far as time and ease. Even those can take up to 10, 11 months sometimes to get your actual green card permanent resident. And even while you're waiting, even though they give you a work permit or you can pay for a travel permit, that can take 4 months or 5 months to get. And so if you think about those timelines, when you're planning a wedding or you're thinking about doing one thing, it can really put restraints on your planning. On the other side, if you're going to try to do things outside the U.S., you're talking about even longer time periods, up to a year. It could be 10, 11 months. Even if you try to get a fiancé visa, sometimes people think that's easier because the fiancé visa, you're bringing somebody here to the United States to marry. Even that right now, if you look at some of the process times, that could really scare you. It could be over a year as well. So the point being is, don't assume that just because you have a U.S. citizen fiance and you're going to get married, that it's going to be an easy and quick process. It's not. Now, having said that, there are some tricks of the trade. There's some little things you can do to speed up or make yourself eligible for different processes. One other thing, and you need to talk to a lawyer, probably does it way too long to explain all of those here in this video. But another thing I want to explain is, just because you and your U.S. or you are on a current visa, maybe it's a student visa or maybe even a work visa, don't assume just because you have that visa that you can leave the United States, get married to a U.S. citizen outside, and just come back in and not have any problems. And then later on, adjust status. They will look at your intent, meaning what was your intention of coming to the United States when you came in, even though you already have this approved visa. And if they find out you married the United States, then left on a tourist visa, came back in a tourist visa, and then tried to adjust status, or likewise, you were here on a work visa, went outside the United States, married a U.S. citizen, came back in on your work visa, even though you'd married a United States citizen, if you cannot convince them that your intention when you came in to the United States was temporary and you plan on leaving again to go back to your home country, they can deny your visa, saying, well, you knew you were going to adjust status. You knew you came in with that intention because you'd already married this U.S. citizen. So you have to be very careful about how you plan trips, how you plan details, and don't just assume, like many people do, even I did, that it's all going to work out fine. You can find yourself really quickly in front of an officer, or even worse, a Border Patrol officer, not letting you into the country or denying your residency because they find that you misrepresented yourself at some point in that process. So anyways, timing is crucial. Talk to a lawyer quick. If you have any inkling that you might want to get married or you're making plans, especially before you put down that money. That was our situation. We put down a bunch of money reserving a hotel spot in Mexico, inviting friends, making travel plans, and it almost all came crashing down on us. If it wasn't just honestly from a miracle from God and a lot of crying in front of USCIS officers, we probably wouldn't have had that blessing of being able to get that travel permit to go to Mexico, get married, and come back. And so I want you to avoid those headaches. One of the most stressful 60 days of my life, I can tell you that right now. And honestly, I look back and I still don't know how we were able to get blessed with that travel permit as quickly as we did. It was, again, like I said, a real blessing and answer to prayer. But don't think that just because it happened for us, it will happen to you. It is a very stressful process. Just getting married has its own stresses. Don't add to it by making mistakes of not planning or getting competent immigration advice from a seasoned immigration expert. So that's my advice for you this Wednesday. Hope it helps. If you are planning on getting married, we'd love to help you out, avoid some of those mistakes that I made as a young immigration lawyer, and hopefully your process will go much smoother and you'll be able to focus much more on the happiness of actually getting married. That's all we got for Immigration Wednesdays. I'm Jeff Peak. We'll see you next Wednesday.